Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Laura Penman from Monroe Community College. And we're really looking forward to your presentation tonight.
Thank
or
you for
this morning, depending on where you are.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm honored to speak with you today about our international collaboration between Monroe Community College in New York State in the United States and Instituto Tecnológico de la Laguna in Coahuila State, Mexico. I am Professor Laura Penman. I teach biology at Monroe Community College, which is part of the State University of New York, or SUNY system. And the courses I teach include Introduction to Greenhouse Management and Introduction to Sustainability. My colleague, who will be arriving shortly, is Professor Maria Luisa Lopez Segura, who teaches engineering and investigative processes at Instituto Tecnológico de la Laguna in Torreon, Mexico, part of the Tecnológico Nacional de Mexico system. We are excited to share the story of how our academic partnership developed and how we leveraged our partnership to create an opportunity for students to apply their knowledge to help a female group of entrepreneurs in a rural community in Mexico. The project involves the use of solar energy to dehydrate fruit and vegetable products, and we see some images of those products on the border of this slide. But before we begin telling our story, I'd like you to take a moment and think about your students. What professional skills do you hope that they will have when they finish your course or graduate from your institution? I'd also like you to take a moment and reflect upon your community. What are some of the unmet needs of people in your community? And if you would please keep thinking about these questions throughout our presentation, I'd like to share those reflections with everyone later. Our academic partnership crosses borders and disciplines and is reinforced by the belief that students learn best when their knowledge can be applied to the real world. Students and faculty designed and built solutions based on the user's needs, the users being the women in rural Mexico, and local resources to that community. The solutions included a solar dryer, you can think of that as a dehydrator, and 3 low water irrigation prototypes for producing plants. The methods and tools will be described throughout the presentation and include collaborative online international learning, also known as Coil, service learning with human-centered design methodology, laboratory and on-site research, international and interdisciplinary cooperation, as well as funding for materials and travel through a 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund. This type of work was inspired by the Terrores Network Leaders Conference in Veracruz, Mexico in 2017, where 76 universities from 31 countries declared a commitment for higher education institutions to enrich their ties with society and the communities to which they belong. As a result, higher education institutions should incorporate civic engagement and community work as part of research, teaching, and outreach. It follows that education is also a human right. So as educators, we have the responsibility to promote just and prosperous communities, as well as access to knowledge. Here is a first glance of the community in northern rural Mexico called Petronillas. And here we see its location on the map. So Petronillas is located quite close to
Laura,
the United States.
The slides are not, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the slides are not advancing.
Oh, no.
Robin, are you there?
I'm here. What happened?
The slides are not advancing.
Because I still think it's not on the slideshow module. You want to send it to me real quick, and I can try to share them and see, or send them to Sally and see if she's able to share them. Are they too large?
It's pretty large.
Okay.
Oh, did this work?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if that's where you were. That's the view I wanted. That's it right there.
Okay. My apologies. Technical difficulties.
That's okay.
No worries. It's working. That's great. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Laura.
And thank you everyone for your patience in the audience. So this is the location of Petronelas on the map of Mexico. We can see it's rather close to Texas and other states in the United States of America. The environmental conditions in Petronelas are very special. It can be very dry with high temperatures, much like a desert, and lasting water scarcity. However, there are occasional floods which can surround and isolate the community. And in fact, there's so much drastic flooding that sometimes when it rains, there's an automatic fear of flooding. We can see in the picture on the right that water is so scarce that it is stored in containers outside of the home for later use.
Thank you, Laura. I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was waiting for approval. So we can see in this next picture how dryness looks like and the dusty environment in this place. There is 565 inhabitants and the average education level is 7th to 8th grade. And 4.6% of the inhabitants are illiterate. There are 135 homes in Petronelas, some of them with a dirty floor. Most have sanitation, refrigerators, access to electricity, and very few have computer or internet, but many have cell phones. There is no running water in the house, and this is the most difficult condition in that place. They have limited access to water for irrigation, and water is usually delivered by tank trucks and stored in the large containers, as we can see on this picture, for home use. And recently, water can be purchased from a dispenser in the middle of the town. Almost half of the inhabitants in this place are economically active, and women participation have increased about 3 times in the last 10 years. On the next slide, we can observe the major occupation is agriculture, cultivating and harvesting melon 3 cycles a year. And this is a very important region for melon in the north of Mexico. In 2013, Fundacion Diversa Coahuila investigated food poverty faced by families and women in Petronelas and discovered several contributing factors as adverse weather conditions, droughts, deforestation, and environmental degradation. All that making it extremely difficult to generate an income. Some other factors affecting food poverty and social condition were the subordinated condition of women, the domestic work overload, and mobility limitation due to geographic marginalization and the lack of public transportation to the place. From this time, a rudimentary solar drying technology was adapted to dry some seasonal fruits, vegetables, and aromatic herbs, but they were not successful. Production was irregular in quantity and quality, not sustainable for market needs, mainly due to inadequate sourcing of fruits and vegetables, the low performance of their equipment, and the lack of transportation to go to the place for trading.
We recognized that our students and our institutions could work together to solve some of the identified problems with the old solar drying unit. Our two major goals were to develop simple techniques to grow plants with little water so that there would be material to dry year-round without having to take a bus to the nearest town and visit the market. We also wanted to design a new solar dryer to improve the drying process. So in this picture, you see Maria Luisa and I ready to use our knowledge to serve people on the outskirts of Petronillas to begin to work with our community partners, Fundacion Diversa Coahuila and the female entrepreneurs in Petronillas. Part 3, partnership progression. How did we get there? How did a professor from New York end up in the village of Petronillas with a Mexican partner? This is Monroe Community College in Rochester, New York. You can notice the green grass and trees thanks to the temperate climate and rainfall that we enjoy most of the year. But for 5 or 6 months, that precipitation falls as snow. In contrast, Maria Luisa works in Torreon, Mexico, about 1 hour drive from Petronillas, so the climate is very similar, hot and dry, but not to be left out, they also get storms, like the image of this dust storm that swept over their city recently. We became academic partners because of our interest in Coil. Coil stands for Collaborative Online International Learning. This teaching method was born in the SUNY State University of New York system to address many of the issues shown here. Employers do value global awareness, collaboration, and cross-cultural skills, but there are many obstacles that prevent students from participating in study abroad experiences, including lack of mobility, family commitments, financial burdens, etc. Coil modules provide cross-cultural experiences virtually using the internet and without the need to leave home. They are rooted in an academic course, so discussions and the project relates to the course curriculum. Coil is a way to connect classrooms. This image shows students in 2 different courses and how they might work together despite being in different courses, different institutions, speaking possibly different languages. So professors collaborate in the planning and design of the Coil project, and students collaborate through discussions and the project. Universities from across the United States and around the world can participate in Coil training and pursue their own Coil collaboration. We were trained for our Coil partnership in 2015. Since then, we had 4 sequential Coil collaborations, which are listed here. The image in the background is an artifact from our first online meeting, in which we tried to summarize the goals of our first collaboration in a visual way. One of these plants, or vines, comes from New York State. Got to use your imagination, but we might imagine North America there. And the other vine comes from Mexico, and they meet in the middle to support each other. From the beginning, we valued and promoted these principles: civic professionalism, civic engagement, service learning, and the value of a community partner. This diagram shows some of the dynamics that we used in our Coil partnerships. Coil partnerships begin with an icebreaker activity. This can vary. You can make several different icebreaker topics to start discussion and to build trust and community. We've used a description of your favorite food and its ingredients. What is your favorite plant and why? And what is your favorite place to visit in your city? As we can see in this chart, we formed groups of students in the United States and in Mexico and tasked them to identify a sustainability problem in their community, to research the problem, and to share it with students in a partner group. Then in the middle of the chart, we see that students discussed the similarities and differences of the sustainability problem, joined again to act as sustainability consultants after proposing a solution to that sustainability problem. As sustainability consultants, they provided feedback to one another and maybe proposed alternate solutions to that sustainability problem. Here are some examples of sustainability problems that were of interest to students and the related groups that we formed. And a reflection from one of the students that really resounded with us. It is so interesting to me that our problems are so similar, even though we live in areas that have two completely different climates. The problem they were reflecting on at the time was food poverty, food insecurity. And we see two different solutions proposed to solve that problem. On the left, in Rochester, New York, promoting healthy food and the use of a fresh curbside market. And on the right, snack or soup recipes that use nutritious dehydrated foods. So a thought to wrap up this portion. Internationalization requires a new and innovative approach and to incorporate non-traditional ideas. So at this moment, you've had some time to think about your students. I would like you to please use the chat to share your ideas, and we'll come back to them later. Please think about your students and what skills you think they may be able to develop through a virtual exchange similar to Coil. We told you how and why we connected our students virtually. Now we'll talk to you about the how we turned this virtual conversation into action. We acquired funds to immerse students in the community, to travel to Mexico, and the students from Mexico traveled to New York State. How we acquired funds to get the tools and materials necessary to create the drying oven and the irrigation prototypes. We received a 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund grant for our project. This was started by President Barack Obama, or former President Barack Obama, in order to increase educational exchanges between the United States and other countries in the Western Hemisphere. When we study together, we learn together, we work together, and we prosper together. The 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund is a private and public sector collaboration that, again, is there to help stimulate and to help new higher education partnerships form between the United States and other countries in the Western Hemisphere. So public sector includes the U.S. Department of State, U.S. embassies, Partners in the Americas, and NAFSA, and many private sector corporations and foundations are shown to the right. As of this date, there have been 253 Innovation Fund grants awarded to most of the states in the United States of America and 25 countries in the Americas.
Well, we must say indeed that how Coil partnership was important to get to this intensive and challenging project. And this project gave us the opportunity to know each other, to learn together, to do research for social partners, to travel with our students north south, and to make new friends. The title of the project was Design of a Production Unit to Dry Regional Products, Vegetables, Fruits, and Aromatic Plants using solar energy in a sustainable rural microenterprise model in Coahuila, Mexico. We provide our students with a real problem to solve, and here we are, very happy to join in this adventure. The methodology that we used was human-centered design. The main objective for us was to contribute through technology to empower women to develop a sustainable rural microenterprise for their improvement of living condition in their community. We defined users' needs. As you can see, they had a very rustic equipment to dry very few materials, so they needed more capacity, they needed more efficiency, a better portability of this equipment. It was very heavy, very big to move and to keep inside their homes. They needed also to improve the food safety and to use durable materials, because every time that they need to work in the dryer, they need to change all the materials to work, plastic and tissues. So Mexican students focus on three things: improving the solar dryer, optimize the drying process, and develop new products for a market. And US students focus on developing prototypes to irrigate container plants with conserving water, while conserving water, using locally available inexpensive materials. This point was very important. So we follow the methodology, 5 steps. We visit the community to empathize, to learn about the user, the audience for whom we were designing. We observe, we interview, we talk with them to define their needs. In the next step, we create a point of view that was based on their needs and insights. It was also very important to understand the user of the innovation. So we work together in small groups to brainstorm and come up with as many creative solutions as possible. MCC students with their teacher, ETL students with me. I was the teacher, and we started to ideate solutions. So we passed to the next step, to build prototypes to represent the ideas the students choose. And finally, the last step, we also accomplished very successfully to share the prototype idea with the original user for feedback. We needed to know what worked, what didn't, and so on. Well, the project had very clear goals at this moment. The first one, we identified the need to have materials for drying all year long. So it was very important to develop a small production, home production program to provide these stuffs. Number 2, we needed to improve the equipment, the performance, characteristic, size, height of a solar dryer prototype. Number 3, we needed to optimize the process for a better quality of dried food products. Number 4, we also had in mind, very important, to contribute to provide income to families in this community through women's empowerment, staying at their places, but with a mindset of producing something from themselves. And number 5, it was a very big goal for our institution that we accomplished successfully to create a partnership network between our institution, MCC, Sony, and ITL, TecNM. So USA and Mexico collaborated, innovated, and facilitated students' mobility through this project to gain technical skills, experience, cultural experience, and maybe study abroad in the next future.
So once again, we would like to share your ideas in the chat. We talked about our story, our community project to help create economic opportunity through dehydrated fruit and vegetable products for an isolated group of women in northern Mexico. I'd like you to think about your community. What are some of the unmet needs of people where you live? And how can we use these problems to both inform students about the several sustainability challenges that surround us, as well as to inspire them to be agents of change? So please add your thoughts to the chat, and we hope that the moderator can select some to share later. So now we will talk about the results. We are scientists, so we like to use numbers, but we're not going to share very many numbers with you in our results. Instead, we will show you some technical pictures, show you some images of us immersed in the community, and then there will be some data, but not too much. So students in Rochester at MCC designed sustainable solutions for low water irrigation prototypes. And we can see a couple of the students at the left. In Torreon at ETL, a new solar dryer was being designed that was adequate for users' needs. After designing the prototypes in Rochester, we used the 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund dollars to help bring MCC students to Petronillas, where they could demonstrate their 3 prototypes that hopefully would efficiently water plants in this very different and dry climate. The women in Petronillas tested these 3 prototypes. I'll show them to you quickly. Number 1 on the left is a gravity-fed capillary mat prototype where the water comes through a very absorbent pad beneath the plants. Number 2 is the ollitas, or little jars, where there is a terracotta pot filled with water, sealed tightly to release slowly to the soil. And prototype number 3 is the capillary wicking prototype that is being described here. After testing these prototypes in the field for several weeks, the women of Petronillas have indicated that the ollitas was their favorite, very portable and easy to use. So after weeks of hard work, both at MCC and followed by a heat wave, a very hot spell of weather in Petronillas, these students from MCC were very happy to celebrate their accomplishments.
Well, from the part of Mexican students, they were working on the improvement of the equipment, the technical characteristic of the dryer. The women were used it before. And they work on the improvement of the solar dryer, considering different factors like the process variables, temperature, wind, humidity, the dryer materials, the portability for the equipment, which products to dry, how to prepare, the size, the shape of the portions, also to keep food safety, to sell in a good quality, with a good quality in the market, and ergonomic to work easier for women. It was important to develop a prototype ease of use. On this image, we can see how the dryer works by sample convection using the heat of the sun, that in this region is more than 90%, very, very high radiation. The blue arrow is the air entrance, the fresh air, and it goes through the top and goes out by the upper part of the dryer. The black helps to heat the air and to dry the food. And this was the original dryer. So after understanding how it works, we change, please, to a new solar dryer based on user needs. And it was transformed in a different prototype considering the needs of the users. These needs were, can we building the first prototype on this picture? Students built the first prototype with their hands, and we can see two students from Mexico and US also assembling the trays to put the food. But the consideration important were to use a height more comfortable to users, to have the handle position to carry, to transport, to trays easy to move in and out from the dryer, and increase the drying area in 20 trays. It was very important also to study the optimal angle of solar radiation and to set some displacement to turn the equipment following the sun with a wheel system. So the problem, specific technical problems were solved. We got more capacity, more efficiency, better portability. We kept food safety, and we use more durable materials. So we can see in the next slide, students' experimental test with different vegetables at school. And when the MCC team came to our school, they did a successful experimentation to compare the old one with the new one prototypes. And we can see that we use the melon from the field. In this time, they were harvesting melon, and we used the melon to compare, to make this part of the study. So the next step from the methodology, human-centered design, is the user experience. So we invited the ladies from Petronilas to come to the school and work with the new dryer. So they did as they usually do at home, and we use 15 different vegetables and fruits to operate and see what happened. So here in these two pictures, we have the old prototype and the new prototype, and we have a comparison chart of the improvement that we got. The effective drying area was increased 10 times. The capacity also almost 10 times, but based on apple slices. The weight of dryer was reduced, so it was easy to carry. Not as much as we wanted, but it was much better. And the dryer storage also was improved. Less space to keep inside their homes. And the time for drying, this is very important, reduced very, very good. From 10 to 20 hours for different products, we could reduce to 5 to 6 hours. So
I just want to give a 5-minute warning to you both. Okay.
Thank you.
okay. So then the next step was developing new products for the market. So we studied for a seasoning, veggie soup, and a snack, making experiments, and develop a standardized method for dryer use to control quality of dried products. So here we can see the results of some of the experiences. The last step was the implementation in the community. We traveled with the students and we put the dryer in the community and trained the woman to work with that and with the computer to communicate with us in the university. So we can see on the image the work in the field. And the last one, Laura, please.
So this is an image of the students from the United States in Petronelas with professors and extension agents, as well as the women that are most active in the solar dryer project. Thank you for your attention. Our contact information is provided, as well as some resources that you might use if you wanted to know more about design thinking methodology or human-centered design, if you were interested in pursuing collaborative online international learning, or seeking out a 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund grant. If we have some time for questions or audience reflections.
Maria Luisa and Laura, thank you so much. This has been fabulous. I will quickly tell you some highlights from the chat, just so that we'll have an opportunity to also hear more from our colleagues. We had great answers to your first question about what sort of skills might we hope our students could derive from virtual exchange opportunities. And they were just the sorts of things that I think you probably have in mind: problem-solving skills, critical thinking about context-specific problems, empathy, cross-cultural communication. So I think those are really excellent responses. And if you'd like to talk a little bit about that, there were responses to the other prompt as well, Laura.
Thank you. No, those 4 or 5 that you shared were very thoughtful and strong responses.
Yeah. Understanding is very important for the countries, for young people to learn, to work together in this global world. So I think all these skills are very important. Empathy, biculturalism, tolerance, and understanding. Our students became friends after this experience. So it was very grateful for us also to see.
And there's a continued input from students that they're amazed at how similar everyone is. And intellectually, maybe you would recognize that as a student, but until you experience that and share the similarities, the differences become smaller and smaller.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The last part is to evaluate the assessment, to assess the impact of this project in the community, and we're working on it for the moment.
Oh, that's wonderful. I was wondering about that, Maria Luisa. That's great. So next time you present, we get to hear more about that?
We hope that.
Wonderful. I wanted to share with you some of the responses in the minute or two we have left to the second question about what are the problems that are the unmet needs in your own communities. And Betsy Udy, I'm sorry if I'm getting your pronunciation of your name wrong, Betsy, but food insecurity, healthy engagement in agricultural work. Those were two things that Betsy listed. And then there was an exchange between Betsy and Hope Windle. And Hope says that here in New York, in the Hudson Valley, there are a lot of farms, and yet there's also food insecurity in small communities. And so this idea of food storage and using solar dryers, finding ways to avoid food spoilage and to preserve food, she's admiring that and thinking that that is also a problem that needs solving here. Betsy says the same, so much food waste in agricultural reasons, and drying can make a big difference. She herself has been using dried and dehydrated food. And Hope says there's a stigma, not sure it's the right word, but people don't want to learn about who don't want to learn about farming, but go to courses that will lead to good paying jobs. Aha, perhaps there is a way to celebrate farming like we celebrate and find the importance of the arts. Betsy says, fantastic example of the synergy between Coil and on-site service projects, showing that these aren't at odds with one another, but complementary. Thank you, Betsy. That is a wonderful comment for you to leave us off with. Laura, Maria Luisa, we are at the time, but are there final comments you'd like to make?
Thank you very much for inviting us to share this experience. We are very excited, and we are very passionate because this project was very challenging and very good results. We were very happy to work together and say for the future, maybe in another projects, and share with you this wonderful experience. One of the most challenging in my career.
And thank you to everyone who contributed to the chat. I appreciate your engagement and for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Laura and Maria Luisa, for this wonderful work that you're doing and for taking the time to share it with us tonight. Congratulations and kudos to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye.